The Emerald Coast has been amazing for our family, and we do not regret the move whatsoever. There are so many of you out there, though, who really want to live in the Emerald Coast. You don't really know where. And so what I'm going to do in this video right here is I'm going to be comparing a lot of the different cities on the Emerald Coast and kind of discussing some facts, some statistics about each and every one of them. And I'm going to tell you right now, this video took forever to do the research for, just kind of trying to figure everything out, because some areas have straight up stats and some areas not so much. And so I tried compiling all the numbers together, putting together the best video possible to give you those stats in order to compare each of these different areas to see which one might be a best fit for you. And then by the end of it, I'm going to kind of recap everything, all these different areas, and then tell you why we ultimately choose to live where we live within the Emerald Coast. All right, let's go ahead and dive into this. First things first is what is the Emerald Coast. This video, I'm not going to lie, guys, this is going to be horrible. I am struggling with 2 ear infections right now. I'm going to get through this as best as possible because I really don't know what kind of tone I am putting out there right now. The Emerald Coast, what is it? So essentially what it is it spans from Pensacola Beach going all the way down to Panama City Beach. It's a good, like right around 100 miles stretch, and it takes, when we're talking about drive time, about a little bit over 2 hours to get all the way from one end, Pensacola Beach, to the other end, Panama City Beach. And the main areas, I say areas because technically not all of these are cities that we're going to be talking about, let me just list them off real quick. So we're going to be going over Pensacola Beach, which is going to be a little weird, Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton Beach, Destin, Miramar, 30A, and then also Panama City Beach. And like I said, I'll dive in a little bit deeper when we talk about a few of these, because a few of the numbers are going to be a little weird just because you can't get all of the stats for this specific area. Another thing that I did want to throw in here is, what is it about the Emerald Coast that makes it so popular or different from the rest of the Gulf Coast? Because we're all right off of the Gulf of America, right? But what is it about the Emerald Coast that draws so many people here, right? We know Destin brings in so much tourism, and in fact, 30A, I couldn't believe it. 30A brings in 5.5 million tourists per year just to that area right there. So it's crazy to see how many people are actually visiting the Emerald Coast and then ultimately want to live within the Emerald Coast. And the main thing is going to be our beaches and our water, guys. And you look at it and you're like, how are the beaches any different from that of the rest of the Gulf Coast and all those things within Florida? So the majority of the sand within the Emerald Coast is made up of quartz. When we're talking about the rest of the Gulf Coast within Florida, it does have some quartz in the sand. It's also mixed in with some like pulverized seashells and some like super small pebbles. So the sand in the rest of the Gulf is definitely a little bit darker, and then it doesn't feel as fluffy as, say, the sand that you're going to find within the Emerald Coast. And then we also have that emerald green water up in the Emerald Coast, hence why it got its name. It's just super clear. You got that greenish tint to it. There's something about the microscopic plankton and all the science terms that honestly I'm not going to throw at you right now, that makes our water that emerald green color with the clear waters. But yeah, the Emerald Coast is beautiful, and for us personally, we've visited beaches all over Florida. We think that the Emerald Coast has the best beaches within Florida. All right, let's go ahead and kind of dig into the meat of this video, and majority of this is going to be kind of comparing the cost of living in each of these areas. And it's hard to compare them because they all do have many similarities and they also have some differences as well. I'll kind of dig into those a little bit as well, but let's go ahead and talk about this cost of living, what it looks like, and then maybe I'll throw out there like the most expensive and then also the cheapest areas within the Emerald Coast. And I'm mainly going to be doing 3 categories. We're going to be talking about your housing, your utilities, your groceries, and then your miscellaneous. Throw my fingers up there. Your miscellaneous essentially is going to be like your restaurants, going out to eat, your boutiques, going out shopping, and all those things. All that's put into one miscellaneous number, and all these are going to be based off of your cost of living index, where it's a number, and if it's above 100, it's more expensive than your national average, and if it's below it, then it's cheaper than your national average. So the first one we're going to be talking about is housing. And quick note on this incorporates both the cost to purchase a house and then also rent a house within the Emerald Coast. I will break into those median sales prices here in a bit. So if we do look at it, let me just go ahead and throw the lowest in there and then also the highest in there. The lowest cost of living when we are talking about housing is going to be Pensacola. Now, I didn't say Pensacola Beach, and that's because I couldn't really find the number for Pensacola Beach. I know that when we are talking about cost of living, Pensacola Beach is going to be much more expensive. But when we pull in all the data, all the numbers together, it always incorporates that main portion of Pensacola. So just know that if you are choosing Pensacola Beach, it is definitely going to be more expensive but Pensacola, it comes in at 63 at the lowest, and then the highest one comes in at 30A. More specifically, because I had to break it into 2 zip codes to make sure that I got all the stats correct. 30A comes in at a 380.5. That's, what was that? More than 4 times as expensive when we're talking about housing, comparing 30A to Pensacola. And so this specifically is for 32461, which essentially ropes in Rosemary Beach. There's another zip code I'm going to be roping into 30A, which is going to be 32459, which is Santa Rosa Beach. Yes, there are a bunch of different areas over there. So when we're talking about Alley's Beach, Seaside, like all these different areas, these are basically the zip codes. And when you pull these zip codes up, these are the 2 main areas that do pop up. And just to make it a little bit easier, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from most expensive in housing to the cheapest in housing. I already told you the most expensive. So then as we go down, the second most expensive is going to be 30A, and the Santa Rosa Beach area, the 32459, where it comes in at a 246.3. 30A has blown up a lot recently, guys, and it's become a lot more of a bougie area, one of those things. And so with that, housing has become so much more expensive. Just wait till I tell you what those median sales prices are over in 30A as of June of 2025. If we go down the list, the next most expensive one is going to be Miramar. And then Miramar is just directly pretty much east of Destin. And then the next one's going to be Destin, where it comes in at a 185.9. Going down the list, the next one is going to be Gulf Breeze, coming in at a 138.1. Panama City Beach comes in at a 123.8. Navarre comes in at a 111.8. And then the lowest one outside of Pensacola is Fort Walton Beach, coming in at a 95.6. Now, there might be one thing that you noticed here, and that is the further east you go, the more expensive it is when we are talking about the Emerald Coast. Because moving to the 30A, Miramar, Destin, just moving straight from east to west, you can see how most expensive, and then it goes into like a little bit less expensive. Then it hops all the way down over into Gulf Breeze, and then it kind of just like shoots from here and there all over, and then Panama City Beach. So it's crazy to see how there's this little niche area within the Emerald Coast, and it's not the furthest east portion because that's Panama City Beach, but there's this area that is in the Emerald Coast that's super expensive when we are talking about that housing, and the numbers do reflect that. Now, utilities, this is going to be the next cost of living index that I'm going to be talking about, and the reason that I do like to throw this in is, first things first, you want to know what am I going to be paying for utilities if I do plan on relocating into the area. But then also this kind of levels makes it more of a level playing field, where we see some places like 30A who have crazy high housing. It's like, okay, so it's crazy high housing, what do the utilities look like? And then bounce into groceries, and then also miscellaneous. So then when we are looking at utilities, the most expensive one actually comes in with Navarre at a 108.2. according to the stats, and all these are according to, I think, payscale.com. I forgot to mention that website. According to the stats, Navarre has the most expensive utilities, and there's one main reason that you'll see there's a trend here. Utilities are typically more expensive than your national average within the Emerald Coast, mainly due to electricity bills. Electricity bills are a little bit more expensive in the Emerald Coast as compared to Florida and the rest of the nation. And here's where it kind of levels out a little bit. When we are talking about your cheapest utilities, actually Miramar and then also Santa Rosa Beach, or the 32459 in 30A, came in at the cheapest at a 102.5. And I'm not going to go through every other city. Essentially, all the other cities, they pretty much range from like a 103 to a 105. Just know that electricity is going to be a little bit more expensive within the Emerald Coast, and it definitely shows when we are talking about all these different areas, the whole 100-mile stretch. One thing that I do like to mention, though, when we are talking about utilities, is the water here is awesome, because majority of these systems are going to be on your reclaimed water, or it's going to be on a well system, to where you're really not paying crap to water your lawn. I always talk about this back in Colorado. When I was having to pay to water my lawn in the summertime, it was literally increasing my bill $100 to $150 per month on top of the water I was already using. And so it is nice that you kind of get that relief when we are talking about water. And then also when you like look at gas seems to be a little bit less than a national average when we are talking about that utility cost within the Emerald Coast. All right, let's go ahead and break into groceries, guys. Actually, real quick before I do, if you are planning on relocating to the area, I specifically help any of you who are moving from Pensacola all the way down to Destin. I'm your top relocation expert in the area. If you're planning on moving to these other areas that I'm talking about, I do have a few people that I talk to that maybe could help you out. But yeah, if you are planning on relocating to the area, give me a call or text at that phone number right below. Right there, we always answer, doesn't matter date or time. But if you're not quite ready to purchase and still want to educate yourself a little bit more on the Emerald Coast, make sure you smash that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up, notification bell, that way you're notified every single time we put out a brand new video. All right, let's go ahead and break into these groceries. So when we're talking about groceries, the cheapest area is going to be Pensacola, Pensacola Beach. So here's another thing about Pensacola Beach. There's no grocery stores. You have like a liquor store with a grocery in it. Outside of that, you're going to have to pretty much drop down into Gulf Breeze proper in order to get your groceries. But this number that is reflecting over in Pensacola for your groceries is going to be mainly the Pensacola greater area, or Pensacola City area, coming in at a 96.6. The most expensive when we are talking about groceries on the cost of living index comes in at 30A, and we're talking about that 32461 Rosemary Beach area, and that comes in at a 113.8. So that means that groceries in this area are 13.8% more expensive as compared to the rest of the nation. And then if we work our way backwards, the next most expensive is going to be the other portion of 38, coming in at a 108.3. And then we'll go into like Destin and Miramar right around 1.5, 105.3 and 105.6. The rest of them, like 101.5 is Navarre, 100.2 is Fort Walton Beach, and 102.4 is Pensacola, Panama City Beach. And so it looks like Fort Walton Beach is the next cheapest one, right next to Pensacola. But just know that groceries, you know, for the most part, a little bit more expensive in the Emerald Coast, unless you're talking about the 38 area where groceries are much more expensive, because that 13.8% can mean quite a bit when you're buying all your groceries within the area. The final cost outside of your median sales price is going to be that miscellaneous. What is your miscellaneous? Again, I know I already mentioned it. It's going to be pretty much the cost to go and eat out, go shopping, do all those local things that you can within the area, hit the boutiques. And if we're looking at that, the most expensive one actually comes in at Fort Walton Beach, where Fort Walton Beach has been a little bit more cheaper when we're talking about the rest of these areas. But yeah, miscellaneous, for some reason that one comes in a little bit more pricey at a 105.9, and your cheapest one comes in at Panama City Beach at a 91.7. So it's crazy to see how pretty much you go the furthest east you can in the Emerald Coast of the Panhandle, that it's going to be a much cheaper groceries over there. Might have something to do with the fact that it is maybe a little bit closer to trade lanes. I don't know. I'm just guessing. I'm not throwing it out there. I'm not an expert. I have no idea. But it's crazy to see how your miscellaneous is going to be a little bit cheaper the closer you get to Panama City Beach. And outside of that, I'll try and keep this sweet and short. So like Pensacola Beach, this comes in at 97. Gulf Breeze is a 105.4. Navarre's at a 105.8. Destin's at a 106.3. Miramar's at a 100.8. It's crazy to think that Miramar, being that close, is 6 points cheaper than Destin. 30A is 100.1. Same, both zip codes are 100.1. So it's okay. So it looks like 30A is expensive when we're talking about your groceries and then also the cost of housing. But man, if we're talking about your miscellaneous, going out to eat and doing your shopping, it's actually right on par with your national average. All right, the next thing that I wanted to break into is I like going to niche.com mainly for schools. Schools, it's great kind of going in and see how each school is graded. They have different subcategories on how the school is graded. Like I think it's typically diversity, teachers, academics, college prep, stuff like that. That's usually what we use niche for. But niche also has a grade for these areas or these cities, and so that's kind of cool. What does this grade incorporate? So I can't really dig into due to steering on all these different separate topics, but I can tell you that niche.com does grade these cities based off of its pretty much like public schools, housing, crime, all of these different statistics, and they put one grade on that city or that area or neighborhood, whatever you want to call it. And the good thing about it is majority of these are in the A's, except for two. There's actually two that niche gave below an A, and it gave Panama City Beach a B, and then it also gave Navarre a B+. Outside of that, breaking into the grades, you look at Pensacola is an A, Gulf Breeze is an A+, Fort Walton Beach is an A-, Destin is A-, Miramar's an A-, and 30A in general is an A-. So I actually didn't realize that Gulf Breeze was an A+ in this until after reading this to you guys right now. So I guess that's pretty cool. You guys are just gonna have to figure out where we ended up choosing by the end of this video. Unless you watch my videos all the time, then ultimately you know where we did choose. All right, so let's go ahead and break into those median sales prices when we are talking about houses. And there's a huge difference because typically when I'm talking about median sales prices within the Emerald Coast, and we usually cover from Pensacola Beach down to Destin, Destin always takes a cake. Destin's always like crazy high when we're talking about it as compared to the numbers that we see over in Pensacola, Gulf Breeze, and all these different areas. That's not the case though, because we incorporated 30A. 30A, we told you housing is a thing there. And 30A, your median sales price as of June of 2025 is $1,430,000. That is Pretty crazy. I haven't seen numbers like that since I lived back in Denver, Colorado. And this is specific to that one zip code in Rosemary Beach where it's 32461. But even the next one, the second most expensive one, is still going to be 38 over in that Santa Rosa Beach area, coming in at a median sales price of $775,000. Now, the good thing that I was able to pull, because I am in real estate, was that median sales price strictly for Pensacola Beach. This is incorporating the city of Pensacola. It comes in at a $767,500. So you can see even the median sales price, it's just because you're right on the beach, super touristy area, highly desirable. It is going to be a higher median sales price. And then if we break into the majority of these other ones, they definitely get a little bit lower. So the next one in line is going to be Miramar. Miramar's right next to Destin, comes in at $642,000 median sales price. Then past that, its neighboring Destin is going to come in at $542,500. And then if we go down the line, we look at Gulf Breeze, it's the next one at $464,000. Then we're looking at Panama City Beach at $447,500 for that median sales price. And last but not least, it's going to be Navarre, coming in at $424,200. And a quick side note to that, even though Navarre, you look at it and it's like, oh, it's the cheapest one right now. I am telling you guys, for me personally, from what I'm seeing, I am personally trying to invest over there right now. I can see Navarre blowing up to get some numbers that are much more than what they currently are, maybe in the next 5-10 years. I don't know how long it's going to take. I could just see it blowing up like crazy in the future to come. And so you see that number right now, and they might be the lowest in the list when we are talking about that median sales price. I don't know how long that's going to last, so I just want to make sure I threw that out there. All right, so like I said, that was the majority of all the stuff that I'm going to be comparing when we're talking about these cities. The cost of living, outside of the fact that everyone knows that 38 is like super bougie. Everyone knows that Destin, Miramar is super touristy, right? Gulf Breeze and Navarre are kind of like it's like you want to live close to the tourist zone or close to the beaches, but it's not quite touristy as the other areas. And then if we're talking about Fort Walton Beach, the bad thing about Fort Walton Beach is it does get a lot of the overflow from Destin, and so they get quite a bit of tourists as well. Of course, you have that tourism down in Panama City Beach. That's the OG, I feel like, in the area. I feel like that one was popping before all these other ones really did hit. Everyone back in the day was always going to Panama City Beach in order to go kind of do their vacations and stuff. So it's all up to kind of like looking at these numbers. If affordability is one of your main things, then you could check these numbers and see which one do I really think that I'm going to afford. Do you want to live somewhere that's super bougie, or do you want to live somewhere that's, you know, a lot cheaper, more like Navarre? So it's completely up to you, but I'll tell you our story personally, why we chose Gulf Breeze. And so we left Denver. For those of you who watch my videos all the time, you probably heard this I don't know how many times, is when we left Denver, we were looking for somewhere to best raise our kids. And with that, we kind of looked all over Florida at first and then narrowed it down to just the Emerald Coast and ultimately ended up choosing Gulf Breeze, Florida. It seemed like it had the best community. They had great schools. They had pretty much everything that we were looking for in regards to the small town vibe, but still being able to access those larger town amenities. I know we don't have a Costco here. Panama City Beach has a Costco and all that crap. We are apparently getting one up in Pensacola on 9 Mile Road. But it fit our family perfectly for what we were looking for. And it's just, the others didn't really compare. It's not what we were looking for. I personally like 38. It's a great place to go and visit. I didn't like the vibe there. You know, I like more that small town, low key vibe, where 38 just, I'm sorry guys, it's too bougie for me. I'm not all about that bougie crap and living in an area that's a lot more uppity. So that's just for me personally. For you, you might like that. You might enjoy that, and that's what you are looking for. It just didn't fit our family, and ultimately we did choose Gulf Breeze, and we love it. We would not change it for the world. We have enjoyed this trip ever since we have made it, and even when we do go back to Denver to visit family, we just cannot wait to get back into our little area of Gulf Breeze, Florida. Alright, thank you so much for watching, guys. I greatly appreciate it. If you are looking at purchasing real estate here in the Pensacola metro area, make sure you give me a call or text at that phone number right below. Right below it there, we always answer, doesn't matter date or time. But if you're not quite ready to purchase, make sure you follow along by smashing that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up, notification bell, that we're notified every single time we put out a brand new video. Till next time, love ya.